Namaste, my galactic family. This is Angela Sim, Mohrephoh umehllohzohreh. Pleiadian consciousness here for you. My galactic family, please listen to me with your heart. I would like to respond to a few brothers and a few sisters who mentioned that there's a big contradiction in a last film I did. Because first I mentioned that you don't need to go to heaven because you are already in heaven because you're sleeping there. And then I mentioned that if you're not going to finish your endeavors here, you will never going to end up in heaven. And this is exactly what I mentioned. Exactly. I'm going to mention this one more time from a different avenue, if you will, because if you asking questions like this, that means, first of all, my galactic family, to ponder, to have a dialogue about the subject of the truth. You have to keep in mind at all times all the information, the crucial information, the importance of information, to even come close to comprehending what is happening here. So let me rephrase this one more time from a different avenue. First of all, please look at all Pleiadian Mohrephoh films on 9 different YouTube channels, my galactic family. There's a lot of information. Those brothers and sisters who asking questions like this, you probably seen 1 or 2 films, Pleiadian Mohrephoh films. That's why you're asking those questions. And it's good you're asking those questions. It's good, like I mentioned before, the highest IQ of the universe, the highest schooling and the highest IQ of the universe is your contemplation. Not how many schools you finish in 3D. That's the dumbest consciousness of all of creation is here. The one filtrating their point of view through a demonic arrogance frequency. That's the dumbest, if you will. There's no judgment here. That's the fact, and that's the truth. So let me rephrase this one more time, my galactic family, from a different avenue, so we're going to be clear picture for you. First of all, the importance is to know the laws, my galactic family. Let me remind you the laws of the universes. First of the biggest laws of the universes, God is one. In a way, it is a law that God, that one is the all are the one, but it's not per se, it's not accurate description. Because this is actually not a law of the universes. In a way, it is. It is, yeah. For those who argue, yeah, okay, it's the law, yeah, okay, it's a law. But if you're looking from a different point of view, you realize that we are here to expand our consciousness, to have a broader picture. So God is one. That's the first law of creation. God is one. So my galactic family, the mentality and the attributes and the nature of Prime Creator, the nature is that He is everything. That's His nature. That is God, Prime Creator, nature. That's why He's mentioned one is the all and all are the one. But it's actually that's the attribute. That's the core attribute of Prime Creator. That's His nature. He is everything. He is everywhere. He is everything. That is His nature. And everything outside of God Almighty, let's call it this way, for knowing purposes only. so you can understand this better, understand this better, my galactic family, overstand this better. Everything, the projection from God Almighty, the reflection of God Almighty, everything God Almighty created is designed to live forever. Everything is designed to live forever. Everything. Everything. So actually, your soul, you don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body. Everything is the other way around, my galactic family. That's why a lot of times you are confused a lot of times, because to contemplate deeper on everything I'm mentioning to you, you have to reverse everything you've been taught. You see where we're coming with this. So my galactic family, your nature, Prime Creator created you. Your nature, your core nature is that you live forever. This is your nature. This is how you are designed. This is your attributes. This is your mentality. This is your nature. This is how you are, my galactic family. This is your nature, my galactic family. Like Prime Creator's nature is, he is everything. He's everywhere, so that means he's everything. The other laws, my galactic family, like the law of Dharma and Karma. Everything in the universe is happening right now. It's only present moment. One is the all are the one. You live forever. See, in a way, those are the laws of the universes. But it's more its attribute to the polarity itself. What does that mean? Everything in creation, what God Almighty created, is designed with a different specific nature. But they're all bound, they're all connected through those laws of creation. God is one. One is the all are the one. Karma and Dharma. Everything in the universe is happening right now. All of those things are in concert, working with the energies, frequencies of Prime Creator to buff it down, because God is so powerful. One is the all are one. You live forever. You live forever. This is your nature. Those are natures of everything what God Almighty created is internal. Well, there's a catch to it, my galactic family. There's a catch to it. To only those spirits, only those souls, you cannot be destroyed. You're going to live forever. But what we mentioned, what God Almighty mentioned, that few of the souls, we call it few, or it's maybe millions in per realities, but let's call it few. Few of the souls will go to refinement of the soul, if you will. The fire itself will purify a lot of souls, because they didn't listen to God Almighty. God Almighty, it's their own doing it. God is not doing it to them. They are doing it to themselves. And like I mentioned before, there are going to be few souls who are never going to wake up. Because if you're doing evil after evil after evil, every generation, every reincarnation, every generation, you're doing evil, you're doing evil, you're doing evil. You're overlapping so much karma is overlapping on your spirit, that your spirit collapses and your consciousness becomes a point in time when you cannot be reincarnated anymore, because your karma is so deep. your overlapping is so massive, my galactic family, that you can wake up anywhere. You're always gonna exist. You can go to parareality. You can go to the so-called past. This being who will never exist in so-called future. What do we say? Future. Future is like upgraded version of yourself. The future, the past doesn't exist, but we always evolve. Yeah. So let's call the future is because of your goodness, because your contemplation, because you did so much good, so much experience you had, that you are expanding your awareness, you're expanding your consciousness, and this is so-called your future. You're becoming more of who you used to be. You're becoming more. And those evil beings, they will never become more of the potential they could be, because they didn't listen to Prime Creator. They didn't obey the law, the nature of existence itself. That's why it's very important I bring that up one more time, because it's fused to the thing I mentioned in the previous film. How in the world do you mention that we're never going to go to heaven, but we're already in heaven? What's the catch? Everything I just mentioned to you, my galactic family, it's designed to bring your awareness to know that it's up to you. It's your call. Because of a lot of souls didn't listen to God Almighty, they did so much evil for so many generations that actually it's not like they're not gonna exist. There is come a time when the expansion of their soul is sealed forever. This is the death of the spirit, if you will. This is the death of their future. It's like they will never expand anything besides everything else. They will never expand more. The expansion is done for the pure evil ones. The expansion is sealed. They will never expand anymore. I'm talking about the pure evil, the ones who did so much harm for so long, and they didn't obey the laws, the nature of creation. And they did it to themselves. They actually did it to themselves. That's why you see the biggest proof, what I just mentioned now, is why Gray's coming back and helping per-realities. Why? Because exactly the same thing happened to them. Not only they could not reproduce anymore, but they could not contemplate anymore. They could not expand their consciousness anymore. If you cannot expand your consciousness anymore, if you cannot contemplate anymore, if you cannot become broader consciousness being, because we're always going to expand our consciousness forever. And if what humans did in per-reality, that's what happened to Grace. And why Grace, they created so many hybrid races. And they're all going so-called back to all the timelines. And that's one of the timelines as well. The trajectory of this timeline is almost heading the same way what Grace went through. That's why so much help is here. And in per-realities. And what I just mentioned, it already happened. You see where I'm coming with this, my galactic family. It already happened. That's why Grace, it's like the race is dying. In a way, you know they are never going to die, because they are always going to be somewhere in per-reality. But if we're talking about they not going to, the race is dying. They cannot reproduce anymore, procreate anymore. Not only physically, spiritually and mentally as well. If you cannot expand your consciousness, if you cannot contemplate more of who you are, because only heart space can help you with that, not the ego structure, not disobeying laws of creation, nature of creation, it's not going to assist you. That's a proof fact what happened to Grace. And Gray, what is a Gray? It's a human being from the per-reality. so-called future, but they all exist because you have to know, my galactic family, when you are being born, like I mentioned before, you're creating billion times per second new portals. But you are the ground zero. You are the ground zero, and from you, it's expanding outwardly for eternity. And that's how you expand frequencies, and they overlapping on itself, and you're creating billion times per second new doorway, new reality. And every being is the core of the universe from that perspective. You see where we're coming with this, my galactic family. So now you may be gonna know more what I just mentioned. There's a lot of beings who are just thinking about reincarnating here, and they are conscious there, 7th dimension, from seven upward, my galactic family. Those beings don't need to meditate to come reincarnate here. They can just consciously, because they are so conscious, they can divide their consciousness in any per reality, and they can run their so-called souls in lower dimensions without losing their consciousness in higher dimension. See where we're coming with this. A 6th dimension, it's more like you can meditate. 6th dimension, quasi-physical. In meditation, you can reincarnate here, and you can come to so-called 3-dimensional reality. 5D, you have to go to sleep for 2 hours, only 2 hours to come here. And listen to me now, because I will respond to those brothers, sisters who've been confused that, it's a contradiction. Listen to me, my galactic family. You know those 5 laws of the creation, and we have to obey them. And actually, you take out 2 laws from those 5 laws, and actually, we call them, they are not the laws of the universes. One is a nature of God, of Prime Creator, and one is nature of you, of everything, of everything. This is our nature. This is how God Almighty designed us. So, a lot of beings came here to help and assist. And you have to keep in mind, my galactic family, there are 3, in eyes of God Almighty, there are 3 beings in 3-dimensional reality. The right wing, the left wing, and forerunners. The forerunners are those who help here and assist. Prophets, archangels, earth angels, a lot of crystal, rainbow, indigo, blue-ray souls. They all came here to help and assist. They are the forerunners. Forerunners. Those are beings who, on a right side, beings, we call them their Dharma beings. And there are beings on the left side, we call them the Karma beings. So if the whole scenario of 3-dimensional reality is finished, you don't need to go to heaven because you're already there. But those, listen to me now, listen to me carefully. But those who will not wake up where they are sleeping or meditating until they bring balance to their frequency. I mentioned about the password and the passport for the universe in previous films. It is all intertwined, all connected. All Pleiadian Mohrephoh films are all connected. Look at all of them, and more you're gonna watch Pleiadian Mohrephoh films, more you're gonna be like, now finally something I'm getting in my head. Finally, I'm getting what's happening here. Even one brother told me that I listened to one of your films 5 times, and each time I listen to that one film, it's like I'm hearing totally different things. Because I designed those films that way, All my films are on a frequency of contemplation. So if you're going to watch one film one time, you're going to hear something, but the second time you're going to watch the same film, you're going to hear something different you never heard when you listened the first time, the same film. Because I put those films on a frequency of contemplation. So my galactic family, until you have to finish, you have to. If you were the forerunner, only the forerunners, let me give you an example, only the forerunners, they don't have to, you will, prophets, earth angels, and I'm talking about the indigos, the purest indigos, the purest ones. The ones who reincarnated only once here, not a couple thousand times or 100 times. You don't need to balance out the frequency of your karma and dharma. You can wake up in heaven, or you can come out from the meditation if you're from a 6D or 5D or 70, what have you. And it's okay. Beings on the right with the dharma. Those beings will have so-called, because this is world of amnesia, because a lot of times you're not aware what you're doing. It takes years on experience and a lot of contemplation to realize what is happening. God knows this. You've been born in reality with a mirror of confusion and total amnesia. God Almighty knows this, my galactic family. So the ones on the right, they will have, it's called Judgment Day. But those on the right, they have more dharma than karma. And likewise, it's going to be those on the left with karma, more karma than dharma. They will have a day of judgment as well for them. But they have more karma than dharma. So you see how that goes, my galactic family. Only purest forerunners, they don't have day of judgment. They can come out from this dimension anytime, and they don't need to balance out anything because they're pure. Like I mentioned before, prophets and archangels and earth angels who reincarnated here, they don't make mistakes. Even in 1,000 people can tell you that he did mistake, that he did something wrong, and in the eyes of God Almighty, he didn't do nothing like that. Because whatever prophets are doing, whatever archangels are doing, it's our higher self is doing this, my galactic family. Our higher self. And our higher self is not making any mistakes. Archangels are not making mistakes. Prophets don't make mistakes because their higher self has so much experience. So you see, I am so happy that a lot of brothers send me emails, and ask different questions, because now you see how all the Pleiadian Mohrephoh films are connected with each other. They're all intertwined. You can hear on one film something and go to previous one or next one. You'll be like, oh, there you go. See, they're all connected. God is one. One is the all are the one. Dharma, karma. Everything in the universe is happening right now. You live forever. Everything in creation is constantly changing. Those are the laws of creation. And like I mentioned, those two out of all those laws, I don't see them as laws. I see them as One of them is an attribute, a nature of God Almighty, and the other one is attribute of creation, the nature of creation itself, and attribute and creation of you, of who you are. You live forever. The only evil ones, they will live forever as well. The evil ones will live forever as well. But to the point where the level of their consciousness is, they're not going to be able to go above their consciousness. They will not going to be able to expand more their consciousness. Do you see how that goes, my galactic family? When God Almighty mentioned that the evil ones He will purify, but the pure evil, the worst of the worst of the worst, they will not be in existence anymore. Doesn't mean that God Almighty will take their life away. No, they're always going to be in existence because there's always parallelities. But what God Almighty is mentioning is they will not be coming forward into the future, so-called. There is no future, there's no past, but for understanding purposes only. Future, I mean more expansion. They will never expand, and they will never rise their frequency higher. Be in the heart space, more contemplation, broader consciousness spectrum. It's finished for the evil ones. This is going to be sealed for them for eternity. Because comes point in time, like I mentioned before, everything is in a rhythm. Everything works in a cycles, in a momentum, in a universe. And the evil ones, I'm talking about the worst evil of themselves. They broke the momentum. So many times they broke the momentum. So many times there's no going back. Even if they try, they will bend backwards to be good. Still, it's not going to work because the momentum of their evil acts were so profound in so many lifetimes and so many realities that God Almighty universe gave them so many chances. It's done for them. It's done. It's not like God is not like, oh God, why is God like this? God have nothing to do with it. God is pure love. It's they did it to themselves. They did it. They did it to themselves. That's it. That's it, my galactic family. So you see, when we were talking about this being not going to be in existence anymore, that means he will not come forward with us. He will not be on a higher frequency. He's not elevating anymore. He will never elevate anymore. A proven fact is what happened to grays. They cannot reproduce anymore. They cannot contemplate anymore. They don't have emotions. They cannot expand their consciousness anymore. It's finished for them. And so-called the last race of grace will someday come to the past. But they always going to be those same grace. They're always going to be in existence in realities. See how honest God Almighty. That's another proof how biggest love God Almighty is. Even if there's going to be a race of beings who did like Grace did, for example, that no more, they cannot have children anymore. They cannot expand their consciousness anymore. No matter how hard they try to come back to the heart space, they can never come to the heart space because the momentum of their evil acts and the electronics and coming out from the nature and not obeying the laws of the universes and of the creation, the momentum was so huge that even if they bend backwards, they will never come back to that frequency. Even if they mutate themselves, they cannot go back again to that frequency. But how big pure love God Almighty is, that even if that avenue will someday die, all the grace will die from this timeline, there's another timelines of the same beings, another timelines and another timelines and another timelines, and they just go forever like this. That's why a lot of those hybrid races, a lot of those, and a lot of grace now from this avenue, I'm speaking to you now, from this avenue, why they creating so many hybrid races? Not only to prolong their race, but actually by helping pararealities. This is like a last bell for them. By helping all the pararealities not to go the same route they went through. That's the mercy of Prime Creator. Because because of they doing this act now, in so-called future, they might break the momentum of assisting pararealities. And finally, one of the race of grace can come back to become a normal human being again, like they've been created originally. Do you see where we're coming with this, my galactic family? Do you see how deep the subject goes? Do you see where we're coming with this, my galactic family? So before you get frustrated, watch a few more films of Pleiadian Mohrephoh, and then you'll be like, now I get it. Now I understand what he's saying. Now I understand what Angel Asim is saying here. Remember, to contemplate, to expand your consciousness, you have to be aware at all times of at least a minimum of the truth and minimum of the laws of the creation itself. This is called a contemplation, natural contemplation. Let's call it natural contemplation. When you always bring to your contemplation the basics of the truth and basics of the laws of the creation. And like this, if you will run on that frequency, you will expand very quickly your consciousness. Because you have to be aware of everything to contemplate on everything. But a lot of times you don't remember everything at the same time when you start contemplating on something different. But it's going to help you, what I just mentioned to you. I am Renegade member, Family of Light, Systems Buster. Available for altering systems of consciousness within Free Will Universe on call. I hope this film helped brothers and sisters who send me an email asking about the contradiction, what I mentioned in previous film. Sometimes it's very healthy to so-called spill the beans in a way that you are more confused than you can contemplate. Because for some, this is the only way. I love you, my galactic family. Namaste.